Hi there, this is David Markham, your host for God Revised Reflection number 2, based on Reverend Dr. Galen Guenrich's book, God Revised, and my critical reading of Reverend Guenrich's text, which is described in the book God Revised. The conversation continues. These reflections appear on You Way of Life every Monday for 16 weeks, having begun on August 11th, 2014. This commentary is on the second reflection in God Revised, and it is titled, Does Religion Require a Belief in a Supernatural God? Dr. Guenrich, Reverend Dr. Guenrich, states in his book, God Revised, that he does not believe in a supernatural God, and as the evolution of human beings has progressed, we have more scientific knowledge, and we now are at a point in our evolutionary history where we realize that the gods do not manipulate natural laws. And so science has taken the place of primitive mythology and supernatural, superstitious belief. Buckminster Fuller said back in the 70s or 60s that God is a verb, not a noun. And I think of God as the Force, as Luke Skywalker talked about in Star Wars. The problem you get into with a supernatural God is that we as human beings tend to relate to God almost as if God were Santa Claus, appealing in a supplicatory way and getting angry when God does not grant our prayers and wishes and decide that we're naughty, or God would be better to us if we were better, if we were good. I call this the vending machine God. We give money to the church, or we insert a certain amount of credits or good works into the vending machine, and then we expect that we will be rewarded. And of course, I'm reminded of the description in A Course in Miracles of the game that the ego plays. The ego game is give to get. So I give something, I expect to get something back, and that's the way of the ego. Things don't work quite that way on the spiritual plane. And so very often we get angry with God when we feel God has betrayed us or let us down. In our contemporary society, we, as we learn more from science, have to incorporate our scientific knowledge into our religious belief. And this has been very difficult, causes a lot of conflict. Recently we've seen that conflict between the theories of evolution and intelligence design, or creationism. There actually is no conflict there. All scientists, for the most part, agree that evolution is a good explanation for natural selection and mutation and how life is developed on our planet. The issue really isn't one of knowledge, but rather one of values, interpretation, and meaning. And those values belong in the realm of ethics and theology, not in the area of science. And so, at the end of the reflection, I have 4 little questions for people to consider, either personally or in their group discussion or small group ministry. The first question is, why is it that this belief in a supernatural God, even in the 21st century when we know better, is so persistent? Why is it so persistent? And why is it so difficult for some people to give up this idea of God as Santa Claus? Question number 2, to what extent do you Or do you want to believe in a supernatural God who will cater to your desires and pleas? Do you make prayers of intercession and supplication, asking God for favors or little things? I think we all do, probably at some point, particularly if we're heavily stressed. And I don't think this is necessarily a bad thing, but it makes you wonder again whether we believe literally that God answers our prayers or not. Question number 3. In what ways is the belief in a supernatural God a means of avoiding taking responsibility for oneself and the communal welfare of the local community and the planet? Again, there's a belief that God will solve all our problems and we don't have to take responsibility for ourselves. The newer view appears to be that we as human beings are co-creators with God in the universe, and we very much have influence and impact over our fate and our future. The last question, what are the advantages and disadvantages of the belief in a supernatural God for an individual sense of safety, security, and well-being? It certainly binds anxiety and gives us great comfort to think that there is a supernatural God who is looking out for us, and to give that up may engender anxiety in certain people who take comfort in the fact of knowing that somebody's looking out for them. That's it for this second reflection. Come back next Monday when we'll be talking about reflection number 3. Why don't you do that you should be doing? What don't you do that you should be doing? Thanks for listening.